This is it, the ultimate dimension for rest and stories, and it's called Sleepy Myths.
In this video, we explore Rick and Morty lore you've never heard before. Not the wild adventures, not the chaos or the science, but the quiet night that broke Rick, and the silence that taught him peace. This is a story about stillness, about the stars that forgot to blink, and a man who finally stopped running long enough to see what they'd been trying to show him all along. Before we begin, make sure you're comfortable. Maybe you've had a long day. Maybe your thoughts are still spinning. Let them slow down now. Take a deep breath. We're so grateful you're here. If you enjoy calm stories like this, stories that help you drift, reflect, and rest, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little quiet tonight. Now, pull your blanket close. Let the world fade behind you. And let's begin. The night the lights forgot to blink. It started on a night that felt neither alive nor asleep. The kind of night that lingers between breaths. The air was still cool, almost reverent. The world seemed to hum at a slower frequency, as if time itself had pressed pause, just long enough for the universe to exhale. Rick stood outside his garage, a half-empty flask dangling loosely from his hand, the faint smell of oil and ozone clinging to the night air. His lab lights were dimmed, his tools silent for once. He wasn't tinkering or ranting, wasn't building another portal or chasing another impossible answer. He was just standing, looking up. The stars looked back, quiet and endless, but something was wrong. Subtly, almost tenderly wrong. The familiar shimmer of the night sky and that soft, living flicker of light was gone. The stars weren't blinking. They hung motionless, glowing without pulse or breath, like tiny glass eyes staring from a frozen face. Rick blinked hard, rubbed his own eyes, squinted. Maybe it was the drink, or maybe his instruments had been interfering again. But the truth was simpler. The stars had simply stopped. He whispered to himself, voice caught between disbelief and fatigue. Well, that's new, he called for Morty without turning around. Morty, get your lazy butt out here, come on. Morty appeared a few moments later, hoodie half zipped, yawning. What's up, Grandpa? It's like midnight. Did another portal collapse or something? Rick didn't answer. He just lifted a finger and pointed skyward. What do you see? Stars? Morty mumbled, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, but look again. What don't you see? Morty squinted, staring long enough for the cold air to sting his eyes. I don't know, Rick. They look fine to me, Rick exhaled. They're not twinkling, Morty, not one of them. Morty frowned. So what, they're tired? Rick turned toward him, eyes unusually calm. Maybe. Or maybe they finally realized there's nothing new left to shine for. Morty gave him that worried look he often did when Rick started sounding too human. That's kinda sad, Grandpa. Rick chuckled softly, not bitterly, but like a man remembering laughter from long ago. Yeah, it is. For a long moment they stood there, side by side, under a sky that had forgotten how to move. The porch light buzzed faintly behind them, moths circling in slow motion. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, carrying only the quiet hum of the garage machines cooling down. Maybe it's pollution, Morty offered, his voice smaller now. Rick shook his head. No, kid. Pollution blocks light. This feels like the universe just got tired of pretending. Morty leaned against the fence, shivering slightly. Do you ever think the universe feels stuff? Like it gets bored or lonely? Rick didn't answer right away. He took another slow sip from his flask, then set it down on the hood of the ship. You know, Morty, sometimes I think everything in the cosmos is just looking for permission to rest. Even light, Morty blinked. Permission? Rick nodded. Everything wants to stop eventually. Stars burn out. Minds fade. Even chaos gets quiet. Maybe tonight the stars just gave in. He said it so softly that Morty didn't know how to respond. There was no science to argue, no sarcasm to hide behind, just truth. simple and tired. Rick lay down on the hood of the ship, hands behind his head, staring upward. Morty hesitated, then joined him. The metal was cold beneath them. The night smelled faintly like rain that would never fall. Rick whispered, "You ever notice how much noise light makes?" Morty frowned.
Light doesn't make noise. Sure it does, Rick said, eyes half closed.
It hums, every photon, every flicker. You don't hear it because you're used to it. But when it stops, you notice how quiet the universe really is. Morty didn't know whether Rick was being poetic or factual. Maybe both. The thought made him sleepy. The quiet was heavier than usual, thicker. It wrapped around them like a blanket. In that stillness, Rick felt something stir. Not in the stars, but inside himself. A tiny ache, a pulse of recognition. The absence of blinking light mirrored something he hadn't wanted to admit. He too had stopped flickering. He was still brilliant, still sharp, but the spark that once danced behind his eyes had dimmed. Somewhere between universes, between inventions and excuses, he'd gone static. He hadn't noticed it until the sky did the same. Morty's voice came soft, almost fading into the hum of the night.
You think they'll start again?
The stars, I mean. Rick smiled faintly, barely moving his lips.
Everything does, eventually. Even me. The words hung there, not hopeful, not sad, just
true. And then, as if to answer him, a single star blinked. Once, twice. A slow, sleepy flicker that rippled across the sky. Morty gasped.
Hey, it's back!
Rick didn't move. He just watched the tiny light pulse in the distance, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again. Maybe it was just waiting, he whispered.
Waiting for someone to notice it had stopped, Morty smiled.
You think that's all it takes? Rick nodded. Yeah, kid. Sometimes that's all anything needs. They stayed there a while longer, saying nothing. The sky began to shimmer again, slowly, softly, like it was waking from a dream. Rick closed his eyes, the corners of his mouth lifting just slightly. For the first time in years, he didn't want to fix it. He didn't need to understand, he just wanted to rest beneath it. The flask rolled from his hand, forgotten in the grass. The wind picked up again, whispering faintly through the trees. Somewhere, the garage lights flickered back to life, a quiet echo of the sky above. And as the stars began to blink once more, the night felt like it had forgiven him, just a little. The next night, Rick couldn't sleep.
Not that he ever really slept, but this was different.
It wasn't restlessness born from caffeine or regret. It was something quieter, like the world had tilted just enough for him to feel the shift, even with his eyes closed. He sat in the dim garage, surrounded by inventions that hummed softly to themselves, each caught between life and dormancy. The room glowed faintly blue from the residue of old experiments. Tools rested where he'd left them, untouched for hours. A rare stillness. Morty had gone to bed early, muttering something about school and normal dreams. Rick didn't tease him this time. He just nodded, as if understanding that everyone needed a place to rest, even if he didn't know how to find one himself. The quiet was thick, heavy with unsaid things. Rick sat at his bench, fingers tapping against a cracked glass vial. When it happened, a sound he hadn't
heard in years, a hum, soft, faint, like a distant memory singing to itself. He
turned his head slowly toward the corner of the room. The place where the old portal generator sat buried under sheets of dust and cables. He hadn't used it since he'd promised himself he wouldn't. But now it was awake. The rings of its core pulsed faintly, as if breathing. The air around it shimmered with color too subtle to name. Not green, not blue, not gold, but something that felt remembered. Rick's breath hitched. He stood, careful, curious.
That shouldn't be possible, he whispered. The hum deepened, like it recognized him. He walked closer.
His reflection shimmered across the metal surface, a man worn thin by genius, by grief, by time. He stared at himself, then at the light. For a fleeting moment, it didn't look like a machine at all. It looked like an echo, and the sound it made, it wasn't mechanical. It was soft, almost like someone sighing in their sleep. The sound of the sleeping portal, he muttered, half to himself, half to the night. Guess even universes dream. He reached out, fingertips hovering over the edge of the device, feeling the faint vibration. It wasn't asking to be fixed. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was remembering. 1,000 thoughts ran through his head. Formulas, temporal echoes, metaphysical drift equations. But none of them felt right.
None of them mattered, because when he closed his eyes,
he realized what the sound reminded him of. Laughter. A child's laughter. Distant and warm. For just a heartbeat, he saw it. A flicker of memory like static through time. A younger version of himself at a workbench much like this one. Tinkering, humming, alive with purpose. There had been another voice then. Someone's hand on his shoulder, a life he'd forgotten how to hold. The hum shifted, lower now, like a whisper. Rick exhaled slowly, eyes glassy in the dim light.
"You're not supposed to talk back," he murmured to the machine.
"I built you to move forward, not..." Remember, the portal rippled, color deepening into something like twilight. For a second, it almost sounded like it sighed. A quiet, familiar sadness. Rick pulled his hand back. He didn't want to wake it. Whatever dream it was caught in, he didn't want to break it. He sat down across from it instead, elbows on his knees, staring. "Guess we're both running out of new worlds, huh?" he said softly. The machine hummed again, steady, slow, rhythmic, like breathing. Hours passed.
Maybe minutes.
In that blue haze, time felt unimportant. Outside, the stars still blinked faintly, slowly. The sky remembering motion again. Their light filtered through the garage window, resting across Rick's face like a benediction. Morty's footsteps came faintly from the hallway, groggy and uncertain. "Rick, you still up?" Rick didn't turn around.
"Yeah, kid, just listening." "Listening to what?"
Rick gestured toward the softly glowing portal generator. To an old memory trying not to fade, Morty squinted. "You mean that things..."
"Alive again?"
Rick shrugged. "Alive's a strong word. More like it's dreaming." Morty stepped closer, rubbing his eyes. "Dreaming?"
"Machines don't dream, Rick." Rick smirked faintly.
Neither did stars. "But we both saw what happened last night." Morty's face softened, his voice low. "So what's it dreaming about?" Rick's expression faltered, something fragile flickering behind his usual bravado. "If I had to guess, maybe all the places it took us. All the things I made it forget so I wouldn't have to remember." The hum deepened, like it agreed. For a while, they both stood there, bathed in the pale light of a sleeping machine. Morty leaned against the table, his eyelids heavy. The sound was hypnotic. A lullaby built from physics and memory. Rick looked at him, noticing how Morty's breathing had slowed. The boy's head drooped slightly, drifting between waking and dreaming. "Go on, kid," Rick said gently. "It's just noise." "I'll keep watch." But Morty didn't answer. He was already asleep, face lit by the gentle shimmer of the portal core. Rick watched him for a long time. Something tightened in his chest, something wordless. He could build galaxies, rewrite entropy, cheat death, but he couldn't fix this. The quiet beauty of someone else finding peace where he couldn't. He looked back at the portal. The hum seemed to sync with Morty's breathing. In, out, in, out. Rick smiled faintly. "Guess you're both better at resting than me." He reached for his flask, then stopped. For the first time in a long while, he didn't want the burn. He just wanted the quiet to last a little longer. He leaned back in his chair, eyes tracing the faint glow pulsing through the wires. And then he realized something. The sound wasn't random. It had rhythm, a soft, repeating pattern, like a heartbeat slowed to half its pace. Rick listened closer. The hum carried shape, tone, even intervals. It wasn't chaos. It was music, faint, fragile, but real. He laughed under his breath.
You sentimental piece of junk.
You're playing a lullaby, and maybe it was. Or maybe the universe was just singing itself to sleep through the portal's hum. Either way, Rick closed his eyes and let it wash over him. For once, he didn't analyze it, didn't dissect it. He just listened. Outside, the stars blinked lazily. Somewhere in the dark sky, galaxies turned like slow wheels, their light crossing infinite miles to whisper back, "Rest." In that moment, with Morty asleep beside him, the portal humming softly, and the garage bathed in blue, Rick finally allowed himself a rare silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but of peace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he didn't feel alone. They had been traveling for hours, or maybe days. Time moved strangely when the stars didn't blink. The windshield of the ship caught fragments of quiet light from distant dimensions, reflections of worlds half asleep. Morty sat beside Rick, curled up in his seat. The hum of the ship was gentle, steady, almost like breathing. Outside, endless space stretched out like a dark ocean, calm, heavy, and endless. Rick didn't talk much. He was watching the stars again, not studying them, not measuring them, just watching. His eyes, usually sharp with calculation, looked softer now, like they were remembering something too far away to name. Morty shifted in his seat, his voice small.
Rick? Yeah, kid, did you think stars ever get tired?
Rick glanced at him. Tired?
Yeah, you know, of shining, of being watched, of doing the same thing forever. Rick exhaled, leaning back. That's a weird question, even for you. Morty shrugged, eyes tracing the slow-moving light outside.
Just feels like
everything keeps going.
Even when we don't want it to. Rick was quiet for a long time. The ship's soft hum filled the silence. Then, almost like he was answering himself, he said, "Maybe that's the point.
Maybe nothing really wants to go on forever.
It just doesn't get a choice." Morty frowned.
That sounds sad, Rick nodded.
Yeah, it is. The boy leaned forward, watching a nebula drift by, a cloud of faint blue and silver that looked almost alive. So what does forever feel like then? Rick didn't answer right away. He could have said something clever, something sharp, something that made Morty roll his eyes and move on. But he didn't. Because the truth was sitting heavy in his chest, too real to hide behind words. He looked at the stars, thousands, millions, and saw none of them blink. The same stillness from that first night lingered. The universe was holding its breath. "Forever," Rick finally said, voice quiet. "Feels like standing in a room after everyone's gone home. The music stopped, the lights are low, and you're the only one left still awake." Morty turned to him.
"That's
kinda lonely?" Rick gave a small smile. "It is, but it's also peaceful in a messed up way. You start hearing things you couldn't when the noise was still there. The hum under everything." Morty tilted his head. "Like the portal?" Rick's eyes softened. "Yeah, exactly like that." They sat in silence again. The ship drifted past a cluster of broken moons, each one glowing faintly from reflected light. The air felt thick, slow, like the universe itself was winding down. Morty's voice came again, barely above a whisper.
"Do you think it ever ends?"
"Forever, I mean," Rick chuckled under his breath. "If it did, it wouldn't be forever." "That's not what I mean." "I know, kid." Morty waited. He was used to Rick's pauses, the long stretches between his words. like he had to dig them up from somewhere deep and buried. Rick looked down at the ship's console, fingers brushing over buttons he didn't press. Sometimes, forever ends when you stop fighting it, when you just let yourself be small. When you stop needing to be the center of it all, Morty nodded slowly. You mean like when you fall asleep? Rick smirked faintly. Yeah, exactly like that. Outside, a comet drifted past, its tail glowing softly, fading behind them. Morty watched it until it disappeared. It's weird, he said. Every time I think I get what you mean, it feels bigger than before. Rick looked at him for a long time. That's how the universe works, Morty. You grow into questions, not answers. Morty thought about that. His eyelids drooped a little. Then maybe forever's just a question that never stops growing. Rick smiled, the corner of his mouth lifting. You might be smarter than me, kid, Morty yawned. That's not saying much. Rick laughed, a quiet, genuine sound that echoed softly through the ship. It was rare, fragile, and real. They drifted for a while after that. The stars glowed like slow heartbeats in the dark, each pulse of light traveling through eons of silence to reach them. Morty's head rested against the seat, his voice drowsy.
Rick, do you ever miss it? Miss what?
The feeling of starting something new,
of not knowing what comes next. Rick's eyes lingered on the console lights. Every day, Morty nodded, sleep creeping into his tone. Then maybe that's what forever is too, just missing something that's already happened. Rick looked over.
The kid's eyes were half closed now, lost between waking and dreams. Yeah, Rick whispered. Maybe it is. He adjusted the ship's course, not toward any destination, but just enough to keep them moving, slow and steady. The hum deepened, a soft, comforting tone that wrapped around the two of them like a blanket. Outside, one of the stars flickered, faint, hesitant, like a breath returning. Then another,
and another, Rick noticed.
He didn't say anything, he just watched them blink, one by one.
As if the universe was stretching after a long sleep. He thought of the night the stars had stopped,
and how it had felt like the world had forgotten something.
But maybe it hadn't, maybe it was just resting. He looked at Morty, asleep now, face calm, breathing even.
There was something sacred in that stillness, something Rick couldn't replicate with science or invention. He leaned back in his seat, eyes half-lidded, the ship's hum sinking with Morty's breath. For a long moment, he simply existed between sound and silence, light and dark.
Awake and dreaming, the stars outside blinked slowly,
their rhythm returning like a memory of life. Rick whispered to the quiet, not expecting an answer. Guess forever doesn't feel so long when you've got someone to share it with. The ship glided on, carrying them through the slow-moving night. Two small souls adrift in an infinite, breathing sky, and as the stars blinked softly around them, Rick let himself rest in that rhythm. Not forever, but just long enough to believe that even endlessness could feel gentle, once in a while. They arrived in silence, not through a grand portal or crash of light, but through a soft ripple in the air, like slipping into someone's dream. The sky of this world was not blue or black, but the color of old glass, faintly violet, dimly glowing as though it remembered what light used to be. The ship landed on something that looked like land, though it pulsed faintly beneath them, as if breathing. Rick shut down the engines. The hum faded until there was only the soft ticking of cooling metal. Morty leaned forward, squinting through the window.
Where are we?
Rick didn't answer right away. He stepped out of the ship, boots sinking slightly into the violet moss that carpeted everything. The air smelled faintly of dust and ozone. There was no wind, no sound, just stillness. Then Morty saw it, in the distance, shapes.
Dozens of them, statues. They were scattered across the field like monuments to something forgotten.
But as the light shifted, Morty realized what they were. Each one was Rick. Not identical, not exact copies, but variations. Some were old, with hunched shoulders and kind eyes. Some looked young, their faces set in arrogance or laughter.
A few were broken, lying in the moss like fallen memories. Rick?
Morty whispered. Why are there yous everywhere? Rick stood very still. His jaw tightened slightly. Beats me, kid. Maybe it's just another messed up fan club, but his voice lacked its usual edge. There was no sarcasm in it, just a strange quiet. He walked slowly among the statues, his coat brushing against the soft moss. Each footstep made no sound. Morty followed, eyes wide. The statues seemed carved from the same material as the planet itself. A pale, glass-like stone that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Some of them held tools or flasks. Others simply stood with their hands in their pockets, eyes lifted toward the sky. It was eerie, but not frightening. More like walking through a field of memories that didn't belong to you. Rick stopped at one statue that looked different. It was smiling. Not the smirk of confidence he usually wore, but something gentler, a small, almost shy smile. The kind that happened when no one was looking. Morty stood beside him. You think
someone built these?
Rick's eyes lingered on the statue's face. Someone or something. He knelt, brushing moss from the base. There were faint symbols carved there, circles intersecting like orbits. Beneath them, a single line in an unfamiliar language. Morty squinted. What's it say? Rick stared for a long moment, then sighed. Roughly? He came and we remembered. Morty frowned. Remembered what? Rick didn't answer. He looked around at the endless field of silent statues. Each one of him. Each frozen in a different expression. Pride, anger, sadness, hope. For the first time, Morty noticed that the moss around them shimmered slightly when Rick walked by, like the planet itself was reacting to him. Rick, Morty said softly. Maybe this world
knows you. Rick's mouth twitched. That's impossible. I've never been here before. But as he said it, a strange sound drifted through the air, low, harmonic, like a memory humming from underground.
The ground pulsed faintly under their feet. Rick crouched, pressing a hand to the moss. It felt warm, alive, and then, just for a heartbeat, the statue nearest to him blinked. Morty gasped, stepping back. Did you see that? Rick said nothing. His hand trembled slightly as he reached out, brushing his fingers against the statue's surface. It felt like skin warmed by the sun. Rick, Morty said again, voice smaller now. What if this world dreamed you? Rick looked at him, and for a brief moment, something unguarded flickered behind his eyes. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. He stood, brushing his coat off.
Come on, Morty, we're leaving! But now, Morty hesitated, then followed.
They walked back toward the ship in silence, their footsteps soft against the glowing moss. Behind them, the statues stood unmoving, except one, the smiling one. Its head turned slightly as they passed, watching them go. Back inside the ship, Morty sat quietly, glancing out the window. You okay? Rick didn't answer right away. His hands rested on the controls, but he didn't start the engine. The field of statues stretched endlessly outside, fading into the distance. Finally, he said, You ever wonder, Morty?
If maybe the universe isn't infinite because it's big, but because it keeps trying to remember itself.
Morty blinked. What do you mean? Rick's eyes stayed on the horizon. Every planet, every life, every choice. Maybe they're all just the universe repeating parts of what it loved once.
Trying to get it right, Morty looked down, processing that. And this world.
It tried to remember you? Rick gave a faint, humorless laugh. Maybe. Or maybe it just remembered what I used to be. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of moss that clung to his glove. It glowed faintly in his palm, soft, breathing light. He stared at it for a long time, then let it fall. As it drifted to the floor, The ship's interior dimmed slightly,
as though the planet's light followed them inside. Morty whispered. It's kind of beautiful, though.
like it missed you. Rick leaned back, closing his eyes. Yeah, kid, maybe it did. Outside, the planet pulsed once, a slow wave of violet light spreading across the surface like an exhale. Rick opened his eyes again, watching the glow fade. He didn't know if this world had really dreamed of him, or if it was something else. Some echo of all the versions of him that had come before. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the need to know. He just sat there in the dim light of his ship, letting the silence fill the space between his thoughts. And when he finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Maybe some dreams aren't meant to be understood. Just remembered. The engines hummed softly. The ship lifted, rising above the violet fields of stone ricks. From above, the planet looked like an old bruise, glowing faintly against the void. As they drifted upward, Morty rested his head against the window. The statues below shimmered one last time, like a wave goodbye, and in that quiet, Rick allowed himself one small thought, that maybe, somewhere in the space between science and dreams, the universe still held a place that remembered him kindly. They drifted for hours after leaving the glass field behind. The stars outside the ship barely moved. They just hung there, quiet and patient, like they were waiting for something. Rick didn't speak. He stared at the control panel, but his mind wasn't in the ship. It was still back on that strange violet world, among those silent statues that looked too much like him. Morty glanced up from the co-pilot seat. You're,
Really quiet, Rick grunted.
Maybe the multiverse finally ran out of jokes. But the humor in his tone was half-hearted, a thin thread that didn't hold. The hum of the ship filled the silence that followed. Outside, the stars began to fade into a different kind of glow, soft and golden, like dawn behind fog. A planet appeared below them, pale and shimmering. Its surface looked like liquid light, rippling with faint hues of blue and white. Morty leaned closer to the window.
Whoa, what's that place?
Rick didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the readings on his screen. No atmosphere.
No heat signature? But, he frowned. Something's broadcasting from the surface. Broadcasting?
Like a signal? Rick adjusted a dial. Static filled the cabin, followed by a faint rhythm, slow and steady, like breathing. Morty blinked.
That's not a signal, is it?
Rick's brow furrowed.
No, Morty, that's...
A heartbeat. Before Morty could speak, the ship began to drift downward, not pulled by gravity, but by something gentler. A pull that felt like memory. They landed softly, the ship sinking slightly into the glowing surface, which rippled like liquid glass, but held their weight. When the doors opened, cool air drifted in, weightless and silent. Rick stepped out first. The ground beneath him glowed faintly with every step. The light spread in slow ripples, forming patterns that faded behind him. Morty followed, his sneakers leaving smaller trails. The landscape stretched endlessly, soft dunes of shimmering light, like a sea frozen in motion. The horizon was blurred, swallowed by a faint mist. There were no stars above, only a vast glowing sky that seemed to hum faintly. Morty whispered.
It's like walking on someone's dream, Rick didn't answer.
He was staring at the horizon, eyes distant, calculating but softer than usual. This place,
it's reacting to us. It's reading something. Reading what?
Rick exhaled.
Memory, maybe, emotion, brain waves. It's like the planet's alive, but not conscious, like...
It remembers everything that touches it. Morty crouched, running a hand over the glowing surface. The light beneath his fingers shimmered, then shifted. Shapes began to form. A house, a little suburban home, half formed from light and mist. The roof flickered like a mirage. Rick, Morty said quietly,
Is that...
Rick stared at it, unmoving. His throat tightened slightly. Yeah, that's my house. Well, one of them. The structure solidified further. The lights inside glowed softly like candlelight. The faint outline of a porch appeared. Rick took a hesitant step forward. Each step made the image clearer. Morty followed, whispering, "Is the planet showing your memories?" Rick didn't answer. He walked closer until he was standing at the front door, or the memory of it. His hand hovered above the doorknob, but he didn't open it. He could hear faint laughter inside, a woman's voice, a child's giggle. The sound was warm, distant, like it had been carried through 1,000 dreams to reach him. Morty looked up at him. "Rick, is that your family?" Rick swallowed hard. "Yeah, or what's left of them." He finally touched the door. It dissolved under his hand, the entire house fading into a swirl of soft light. When it cleared, the dunes had changed. Now the surface shimmered with thousands of faint figures, memories frozen in glowing outlines.
Morty could see them, fragments of lives, moments repeating.
A man sitting under a tree, a child chasing a balloon, two people holding hands under a broken moon. "This planet," Rick murmured, "isn't alive the way we think. It's a storage unit."
A graveyard for forgotten memories. Morty stepped closer to one of the glowing figures. A little girl laughing, her face made of light. Whose memories are they?
Rick looked around slowly.
Everyone's, anyone who ever existed.
It's like the universe's subconscious dumped everything here. The figures pulsed faintly, as if aware of their visitors. Morty watched in awe.
So, if it remembers everyone, does that mean Rick cut him off quietly?
Yeah, it remembers me too. A new light flared nearby. They turned, and there he was again, Rick, standing beside a version of himself. This one was younger, cleaner, smiling easily. The younger Rick looked at Morty, then back at the older one.
You finally stopped long enough to see it, huh?
Morty's heart jumped.
But the real Rick didn't move.
He just stared. His expression didn't shift, but something inside him cracked. A small sound, silent and deep. "You're not real," he said. The younger Rick smiled faintly. "Neither are memories."
But they still hurt. And then he was gone. The light faded, leaving only the soft hum of the planet. Rick stood there for a long time.
Morty didn't speak. There was nothing to say. Finally, Rick sighed, the sound trembling slightly.
You know, Morty, I used to think running kept me alive.
That if I kept moving, kept building, I wouldn't have to stop long enough to remember what I lost. He looked down at the glowing surface, where faint echoes of his memories rippled beneath his boots. But I think the universe always remembers.
Even when you don't want it to. Morty reached out, placing a small hand on Rick's sleeve.
Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's how it forgives you. Rick didn't look at him, but his shoulders softened, just a little. The wind began to move, a slow, shimmering current of light that brushed past them like a sigh. The dunes shifted, carrying the faint sound of laughter, fading music, voices of people long gone. Rick tilted his head back, looking at the glowing sky. You ever think, Morty, that maybe memories don't fade because they're supposed to go on sleeping? That maybe they're just
dreaming of us too?
Morty smiled faintly.
I think that's kinda nice. Rick nodded slowly. Yeah, nice. They stood there together,
surrounded by the universe's forgotten moments, the planet breathing softly beneath them. And for the first time in a long time, Rick didn't feel the need to analyze it, explain it, or destroy it. He just let the silence stay. Because for the first time in all the multiverses he'd ever visited, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full. Full of everything that had ever been loved and everything that had ever been lost. The ship drifted through a thin corridor of stars, the kind that seemed to hum rather than shine. Morty had fallen asleep in the co-pilot's seat, his breath steady, his face soft. Rick sat in silence, staring into the dark. His reflection on the window looked older than it should. Not just older in years, older in memory. He whispered, almost to himself. You ever think maybe it's not the universes that change, Morty? Maybe it's just us running out of reasons to... Morty didn't stir. Rick sighed and turned his attention back to the map, a cluster of flickering coordinates blinking like lazy fireflies. One pulsed brighter than the rest, a small planet tucked in the folds of forgotten space. The name on the display read, The Still Tap. Rick smirked. Cute name. He angled the ship downward, letting it glide toward the small speck of light. The planet looked like it had been carved out of twilight. Soft amber clouds, streets glowing faintly, music echoing from nowhere. The air shimmered, heavy with the scent of something sweet, like memory soaked in honey. They landed beside a crooked sign that read, Times Bar. It tilted slightly, frozen mid-swing like even gravity had grown tired. Morty rubbed his eyes. Wait, we're stopping for drinks?
Here, Rick stretched.
You ever hear of cosmic inertia, Morty? Sometimes, to keep moving, you gotta stop for a while. The door creaked as they entered.
Inside it was dim and golden, filled with the low hum of an old record looping the same melody over and over.
Dust floated in the still air, yet nothing seemed old. Behind the counter stood a man, or maybe not a man at all. His shape flickered gently, like light reflected off water. He was polishing a glass that never quite got clean. Evening, the bartender said, his voice soft and round, like it had been used for centuries. Don't get many travelers out this way. Rick slid onto a stool. I don't get many reasons to travel anymore, the bartender smiled.
That's the best reason of all. Morty took the seat beside him, looking around.
There were no clocks, no windows, just the faint golden glow and the quiet sound of glasses that never clinked. Rick tapped the counter. Whatever passes for whiskey here. The bartender poured a shimmering liquid, silver, slow-moving, thick like liquid moonlight.
It didn't fizz or smoke.
It just existed, perfectly calm. Rick took a sip. The taste was indescribable, not bitter, not sweet, just familiar. It tasted like a pause between breaths. He exhaled. What do you call this stuff? The bartender shrugged.
Depends on what you need it to be, Rick smirked. So you're one of those poetic types? Just observant, the bartender said gently.
People come here when time gets too heavy. The drink helps them set it down for a bit. Morty looked around. What happens if they stay too long? The bartender stopped polishing. For a moment, his expression flickered. Sadness, maybe, or something older. Then time stops needing them. Rick's eyes narrowed, half amused, half intrigued. You saying this place eats people? The bartender smiled faintly.
Nothing eats anyone here. Things just stop mattering. Rick leaned back, the stool creaking.
Sounds peaceful. Sometimes peace is just another word for giving up, the bartender replied, still calm. For a long while, none of them spoke. The record looped again. The same soft tune. Simple, wistful, unfinished. Rick stared at his glass, the lights swirling inside it like galaxies collapsing in slow motion. He finally said, You remember everyone who's ever come here? The bartender nodded slowly. All except myself, Rick chuckled, though there wasn't much humor in it. Yeah, I get that. Morty watched them quietly, sensing the shift, and that strange heaviness that came whenever Rick's guard began to lower. The bartender leaned on the counter, his voice soft. You've got eyes like someone who's been everywhere except home. Rick didn't look up. Home's just a place that keeps proving you were wrong about it. The bartender smiled sadly. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe home's been waiting for you to stop proving yourself right. Rick stared at him for a moment, the kind of stare that carried both resentment and recognition. Then he looked away. Morty sipped his drink cautiously.
It didn't taste like anything.
It just made him feel lighter, like his thoughts were floating away one by one. "Rick," he said quietly, "what happens if we forget too much?" Rick shrugged. "Then you start over, Morty. You become someone else."
That's what everyone does, but...
"Don't we lose who we are?" Rick's eyes softened, just for a heartbeat. "Sometimes that's the point." The bartender nodded as if approving.
You're closer than you think. Closer to what?
Morty asked. "To stopping," the bartender said.
Not dying, just...
"Stopping." Rick finished his drink and pushed the glass forward. "Fill it again," but when he looked up, the bartender was gone. The counter shimmered. The bottles behind it flickered like candle flames in a storm. The record player had stopped, the needle frozen mid-song. Morty blinked.
Rick? Where'd he go?"
Rick looked around slowly. "He didn't go anywhere, Morty. He was never here." Outside, the air had changed. The planet's glow had dimmed, and even the stars above had stopped moving. Rick stepped outside, his boots sinking softly into the dust. "Time doesn't pass here, remember?" Morty followed. "So how do we leave?" Rick looked up at the still sky. "You don't leave by moving, Morty. You leave by remembering you were supposed to." He closed his eyes for a moment, and the hum of the ship echoed faintly, like memory calling him home. The world around them shimmered. The bar flickered, fading into light until it was gone. They stood back in the ship, everything quiet, as if the universe had taken a slow breath. Morty sat down, dazed. Was any of that real? Rick didn't answer immediately. He looked at his hand, faint traces of silver liquid still glimmering on his skin. He rubbed them away slowly. "Yeah," he said softly. "Too real." The ship engines rumbled to life, slow and low like a heartbeat. Morty leaned back, his eyes half closed. "I like that place," Rick nodded, staring out into the endless dark. "Me too, Morty, but if you stay too long anywhere, even peace starts to taste like regret." As they drifted back into the starlight, Rick whispered to no one, "Guess I'll drink to that." And somewhere in the distance, the faint echo of a record played the same unfinished tune, one note short of forever. The night after they left the bar that never aged, the ship moved slower than usual, not because of any damage, but because the air around it seemed reluctant to move. Even the stars felt tired. Rick sat in the garage, elbows on his knees, staring at a blank piece of metal. The lights buzzed faintly above him, flickering like restless thoughts. Morty had gone to bed hours ago, muttering something about how silence made him nervous, but Rick wasn't nervous. He was curious. He stared at the metal until his reflection blurred into it. A dull shape, a shadow with thinking eyes. Then he began to work. It started with soft clicks and quiet hums. Tools moved with purpose, but without rhythm. Wires coiled like sleeping snakes. Every motion was deliberate, slow, almost reverent. Rick wasn't building out of genius tonight. He was building out of ache. By dawn, or whatever passed for dawn in this part of the galaxy, something small and glowing sat on his workbench. It looked like a music box made of glass and thought. A single dial shimmered on its side, labeled with one word: silence. Rick wiped his hands, stood back, and stared. For once, he didn't feel proud.
He just felt
empty in the right way. He pressed the dial. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, invisibly, sound began to drain from the room.
not vanish exactly,
just soften like a curtain falling over the world. The buzzing lights dimmed. The hum of the generator grew shy. Even Rick's heartbeat began to sound distant. It wasn't cold or warm. It wasn't peaceful or frightening. It just was. He exhaled. though even that seemed quieter than it should have been. For the first time in forever, there was no chaos. No portals whining open, no clinks of glass, no sarcastic mutters echoing off metal walls. Just stillness and Rick in the center of it. He leaned against the workbench, eyes half closed. It felt like standing at the bottom of an ocean made of air. Time began to blur. Minutes lost their edges. The air folded inward, soft and heavy. He tried to think of something, anything, but thought itself began to sound too loud. So he stopped thinking too. The silence was perfect until Morty woke up. Rick barely noticed him enter, just the faint shift of space as Morty's voice broke the void. "Rick?" Morty whispered, glancing around.
Something's off, Rick didn't answer.
He was watching the glowing box, his reflection caught inside it, a face frozen mid-thought. Morty stepped closer, frowning.
"Rick, did you
build something again?" Rick's lips twitched. "It's called the Quiet Machine." His voice was so soft it barely existed. It removes emotional noise, all the static that keeps us from hearing what's real. Morty tilted his head. "What's real?" Rick looked at him, eyes heavy.
"The silence beneath everything," Morty swallowed. "That's creepy," Rick smiled faintly. "It's peace." Morty glanced around the room again.
The air felt thick, like syrup. Every sound he made came back slower, as if the room had to think before answering.
Even his heartbeat seemed afraid to echo. "Rick, I don't like it," he said quietly. "It's too quiet." Rick turned the dial up slightly.
The glow deepened, blue fading into silver. The world responded by slowing down even more. Morty's voice came out soft, muffled.
"Rick, shh," Rick said, raising a finger. "Listen, to what?"
Rick closed his eyes. "To what's left?" He leaned back in his chair, face tilted upward, eyes almost peaceful. The silence pressed closer, like a blanket pulled too tight. Morty stepped back, heart racing. "Rick, this isn't peace. It's like you're disappearing." Rick didn't move.
"That's the point, Morty." "No, it's not."
Morty snapped. But even his shout was swallowed, his voice stripped of edges.
"You're scaring me." Rick opened his eyes, calm, far away. "You think sound makes you alive?"
"But it's noise, Morty, distraction, all of it."
"Every argument, every portal, every..." He stopped mid-sentence. A single tear had slid down his cheek without him noticing. It fell onto the machine.
The glow wavered. For a moment, the silence rippled. A faint sound bleeding through like a whisper trapped behind glass. Morty stepped forward.
"Rick, please."
"Turn it off." Rick looked at him, blinking slowly,
as if trying to remember what please meant. Then he reached out, but instead of the dial,
his fingers brushed against Morty's hand. Small, trembling human. The silence broke. It wasn't loud. It was just full again. The hum of the lights, the faint creak of the stool, Morty's breath, sharp with relief. Rick exhaled, and this time it sounded real. The machine still glowed faintly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat, trying to remember its rhythm. Morty whispered, "You okay?" Rick looked at the box. Almost. He picked it up and turned the dial all the way to the left. The glow faded to nothing. Morty frowned.
"You're not going to destroy it?"
Rick shook his head. "Nah. Sometimes it's good to remember what too quiet feels like." He set the quiet machine on a shelf beside his older inventions. Forgotten tools, failed experiments, and one cracked flask. The silence that remained now was natural, gentle.
Alive, Morty leaned against the table, watching him.
"You really thought peace meant turning everything off?" Rick smirked. "Peace isn't the absence of noise, Morty. It's knowing which sounds to keep." Morty smiled a little. "You're weird, man," Rick chuckled. A sound that echoed just right in the newly reborn air. "Yeah," he said softly, "but at least now I can hear it." They stayed like that for a while, not talking, not moving much, just breathing in the kind of silence that felt earned. Outside the garage window, a faint light trembled through the void. The stars were still shy, half hidden, but one of them blinked. Soft and slow, Rick noticed. For the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled without irony. "Guess the universe's noise machine's still on," he muttered. Morty looked out too, grinning. "Good, I like it better that way." Rick nodded, eyes still on the stars. "Yeah, me too, Morty." And somewhere deep inside the quiet machine, though it was off, a faint hum persisted. Not of silence, but of life, continuing softly, endlessly, just loud enough to remind them both they were still here. The ship floated through a stretch of black space so quiet it felt like a thought that had forgotten itself. The stars didn't twinkle. They pulsed slowly, like memories trying to breathe. Morty lay asleep on the couch in the observation bay, his body curled under a thin blanket. His face was calm for once, unwrinkled by fear or confusion. The silence Rick had made earlier still hung faintly in the air. Not total, not heavy, but humming like a low tide at the edge of a dream, and then, softly, the dream began. At first, Morty thought he was awake. The room looked the same, stars outside, the faint buzz of the ship. But something was off. The stars weren't fixed anymore. They were moving, slow and deliberate, like fish circling in deep water. He sat up and blinked. The stars rearranged themselves into patterns, letters almost, and then dissolved before he could read them. "Rick?" Morty called out softly. His voice didn't echo. It didn't even sound like his. He stood. The floor rippled under his feet as if it were made of glass resting on liquid light. The ship's walls pulsed faintly like they were breathing. Then brought in a faint voice, distant but warm. "Hey, kid," Morty turned. Rick was standing at the far end of the room, only
He wasn't really there.
his body shimmered like a reflection on water that couldn't stay still. His lab coat drifted behind him, glowing faintly, and his eyes looked softer than Morty remembered, like they were made of light instead of exhaustion. Morty's chest tightened. "Rick?" Rick tilted his head. "You dreaming, Morty?" Morty frowned. "I think so." Rick smiled faintly.
"Oh, good, means you're finally letting the noise settle," Morty blinked.
The noise? Rick took a few slow steps forward, though each one seemed to bend the floor slightly, like gravity itself was uncertain. "Yeah, that constant buzz in your head."
Fear, guilt, the things you replay when you can't sleep.
"You humans call it thinking." Morty rubbed the back of his neck.
And you don't?
Rick chuckled softly, the sound floating like smoke.
Not anymore. I just...
Drift. Something in his tone made Morty uneasy. It was too calm.
Too peaceful, Rick, Morty said. You didn't...
Do something with that machine again, did you? Rick smiled, or tried to. I turned it off. But sometimes silence doesn't stop when you flip a switch, Morty. It lingers. Morty's hands clenched at his sides. You mean it's still...
Inside us?
Rick shrugged. Inside you, maybe. Dreams are just echoes of what the mind couldn't finish saying. The room shifted. The walls turned transparent, the floor fading into starlight. Suddenly, Morty and Rick were standing in open space. Nothing beneath their feet but a dim reflection of the Milky Way curling endlessly. Morty looked around, dizzy. Whoa! Rick stood beside him, hands in his coat pockets.
Looks quiet, doesn't it?
Morty nodded slowly. Yeah, too quiet, Rick's voice softened. That's because you're listening wrong. He raised a hand and snapped his fingers. Immediately, faint sounds began to emerge, not from any direction, but from everywhere at once. The distant pulse of a dying sun. The whisper of dust drifting between galaxies. The hum of light bending around a black hole far away. The sounds weren't loud. They were impossibly soft, yet vast, the kind of quiet that wasn't empty but full. Morty closed his eyes. "It's beautiful." Rick smiled faintly.
That's the thing about silence, Morty. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of everything heard slowly. Morty opened his eyes again. So, this is what you were looking for?
This kind of peace. Rick didn't answer immediately. His eyes wandered the stars, and for a moment, Morty thought he saw sadness flicker there. "I thought peace meant shutting the world out," Rick said finally. "Turns out it's just learning how to listen without needing to talk." The stars above them began to pulse faster, forming faint shapes, not words, not exactly, but moments. Morty saw flashes of their travels, running from chaos,
Laughing over broken gadgets, Rick falling asleep at the wheel.
Morty crying after another adventure gone wrong. The light danced through those memories, turning them soft, forgiving. Morty's throat tightened.
Rick, are these ours? Rick nodded.
Dreams borrow from memory, Morty. Sometimes they just play them back with a better soundtrack. Morty laughed through his breath. It's so weird. Rick grinned. Yeah, but you love it. The space around them trembled faintly. The stars began to fade, like a candle being blown out from the edge of the universe inward. Morty looked around, panicked.
Wait, what's happening?
Rick looked up, calm.
You're waking up. No, not yet, Morty shouted. I don't want to... Rick stepped closer, placing a hand on Morty's shoulder.
It was warm, real. You don't lose the quiet just because you wake up, Rick said softly. It's in you now. You just have to remember it's there when things get loud again. Morty swallowed hard.
But will I remember you like this?
Rick's hand squeezed gently, if you listen right. And then, as gently as it began, the dream began to dissolve. The stars folded into one another, the light collapsing softly into the dark. Rick's face blurred, his smile fading into a shimmer that felt like a heartbeat beneath the silence. Morty whispered, "Good night, Rick." Rick's voice, faint, fading but warm, answered, "Good night."
Kid. Morty's eyes fluttered open. He was back in the observation bay, wrapped in his blanket.
The ship hummed quietly, alive again. He looked out the window. The stars were still, but for the first time, they didn't look distant. They looked like they were waiting. Morty leaned back, letting the hum of the ship blend with his heartbeat. Somewhere deep inside, he could still feel that quiet space Rick had shown him, the place where sound wasn't gone but understood. He smiled faintly. Listening right, huh? The stars outside pulsed once, faint, like a nod, and Morty drifted back to sleep, not into silence this time, but into something better. A quiet that breathed. It began quietly. Not with a crash or explosion, not with one of Rick's infamous inventions blowing up the backyard.
No, it started with a flicker. The soft, fluorescent lights that hung above the cluttered tables in Rick's garage trembled once, then dimmed.
Morty thought it was a power surge at first. He was sitting on an overturned stool, playing with a screwdriver and watching Rick tinker with something that didn't look like it had a purpose. Rick?
The lights are, doing that thing again. Rick didn't look up.
His hands moved mechanically, turning the same bolt again and again, even though it was already tight. They're fine. Probably just bored, Morty frowned. Lights can't get bored, Rick gave a half smile, the kind that was almost sad. Everything gets bored eventually, Morty, even the things that aren't supposed to. He set the wrench down. For a moment, there was silence. That thick kind of silence that fills a room right before something changes. Then the hum of the garage, the low mechanical drone that had always been there, that heartbeat of endless experiments, began to fade. The machines went still, one by one. The portal gun's charging coil powered down with a sigh. The fluid tank behind Rick's bench stopped bubbling.
A half-built robot slumped slightly like it had just grown tired of pretending to care about being finished. "Rick," Morty said softly, "what's happening?"
Rick didn't answer right away. He just stood there, staring at the lights as they dimmed further, their glow turning from white to a soft amber, then to something gentler, like candlelight at the edge of sleep. Finally, he exhaled.
"It's all been awake too long," Morty blinked.
"What do you mean?" Rick leaned against the work table. "Machines don't think, right? But they learn. They watch.
"Every time I build something, I give it a little spark of purpose. And over time, all that purpose stacks up. I don't like static." Morty tilted his head.
"Static?" Rick nodded. "Yeah, noise, restlessness. They start to hum because they don't know how to stop existing." Morty frowned.
"That sounds..."
"Kind of like you," Rick chuckled. Just a single, tired laugh. "Yeah, I guess it does." He walked slowly to the center of the room, his boots crunching against stray bolts and bits of glass.
"Everything I've ever made, portals, gadgets, all of it, runs on motion, on thought."
"On me not sitting still long enough to feel the weight of it all. But tonight," he looked around. The air shimmered faintly as though the space itself was exhaling. "Tonight, even the universe wants to rest." Morty stared at him, then at the room. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm too soft to measure.
Every clock had stopped ticking.
Even the faint hum of the power line outside had vanished. "Rick," Morty whispered, Are we
still alive?"
Rick smiled faintly. "Yeah, Morty, we're alive.
We're just..."
In between beats. He sat down on his old rolling chair, the one with the cracked leather and squeaky wheels, and looked around the garage. His eyes softened, as if seeing the room for the first time, instead of through years of exhaustion. There were bottles scattered across the floor, old blueprints taped to the walls, a dusty photo of a younger Rick with someone Morty had never met. It all looked
"Peaceful." "Morty," Rick said after a long pause, "you ever notice how the quiet doesn't scare you as much when you stop fighting it?"
Morty sat beside him on the floor, cross-legged.
"I guess so.
It's just weird. Like everything's sleeping but still kind of alive." Rick nodded slowly. "Yeah, the universe does that sometimes. Sleeps with one eye open." He reached for a tool, then hesitated halfway. The motion looked uncertain, like someone trying to remember why they started moving in the first place. Then, instead, he put his hand flat on the table. The metal was warm, not from electricity, but from memory. Morty watched him silently. He didn't know what to say. Rick always had the answers, the theories, the sarcasm. But now, there was just this. A man and his machines, finally sharing the same quiet. Rick finally spoke again, his voice low.
"You know, Morty, all my life I've been afraid to stop. I thought if I did, everything I built would fall apart."
"But the noise was what kept me alive." He looked at the dim lights above them. "But maybe it's the stopping that lets things stay together." Morty frowned thoughtfully.
"You mean resting?"
Rick smiled faintly.
"Yeah, resting. Letting the universe breathe without trying to fix it." A faint vibration stirred the air, like a sigh through the rafters.
The lights flickered once more, not struggling now but softly pulsing, as if acknowledging him. Morty tilted his head.
"Rick, I think they heard you." Rick looked up.
The light caught his eyes, making them look almost young. "Maybe they did, Morty. Maybe they're tired of keeping me company." For a while, neither of them spoke. Outside, the stars remained still. No blinking, no shimmer, just a dark, velvet sky holding its breath. Inside, the garage seemed to hum in slow rhythm with it, not working, not inventing, just existing. Eventually, Morty's eyelids began to droop. The air was heavy with the kind of calm that makes you drowsy. Rick saw it and smiled gently. "Go ahead, kid. The world's not going anywhere tonight," Morty yawned, curling up on a pile of old coats. "You sure?" Rick nodded. "Yeah. Tonight's the kind of night where even chaos takes a nap." The last light in the garage flickered once, twice, and then steadied into a faint golden glow. Rick leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head, staring up at it. "Guess that's their way of saying goodnight." Morty mumbled something half asleep, words fading into breath, and Rick, for once, didn't reach for a bottle or a wrench or a theory. He just sat there, letting the silence hum through him, letting the garage rest, letting himself be. The air grew warmer, softer, almost alive. The machines no longer looked broken or unfinished. They looked like they were dreaming too, and for the first time in a very long time, Rick didn't feel like the smartest man in the universe. He just felt human. The garage, in all its quiet brilliance, slept. It was one of those evenings where the house itself seemed tired. The air hung heavy and still, as if it had been holding its breath for too many years. Summer sat in the living room, scrolling through half-hearted news feeds, the glow of the screen painting her face in quiet blue light. Beth was upstairs, asleep early for once. Jerry had gone to bed hours ago, the faint hum of his snoring drifting down the hallway like a lazy, offbeat rhythm. Only the sound of the old wall clock filled the silence. Tick, tick, tick. The heartbeat of a house waiting for something it didn't know it had lost. Summer didn't know what made her look toward the garage door that night. Maybe it was the faint draft seeping through the cracks, or maybe it was just that strange pull. The one that always whispered, "Go look," just once more. The door creaked open with that familiar metallic sigh. Dust drifted lazily in the beam of her phone's flashlight as she stepped inside. The place smelled faintly of oil and ozone, a scent that felt like memory itself. Everything was still. The workbench, once alive with flickering lights and the constant buzz of Rick's projects, was silent. His tools were scattered. Half-finished devices lay sleeping beneath cloths. The portal gun sat untouched on a metal tray, like it had been waiting for someone to remember it. Summer walked slowly, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. It felt strange being in there without him. The garage had always been Rick's world, a chaos she wasn't meant to understand.
But tonight it didn't feel dangerous or secret, it felt
lonely. She reached out and brushed her fingers across the counter. Dust lifted and swirled in the air, catching the light like tiny stars. That's when she saw it. A small envelope tucked under an old cup of cold, solidified coffee. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable. Sharp, quick, messy. Rick Sanchez. Her breath caught. She hesitated, then gently pulled it free. There was no name written on it, just a small note scribbled across the back in his usual tone of casual warning.
"If I stop, don't wake me." Summer froze.
The words hit her like a chill. She looked around, half expecting to see him leaning against the counter, smirking, making a joke about how dramatic he was. But there was nothing. Only the quiet, the hum of the refrigerator in the next room, the faint, ticking clock in the hall. She sat down on his old chair, the one that creaked with every movement. For a moment she just stared at the envelope. She thought about all the times he'd brushed past her, lost in thought. How he'd called her kid without ever really looking her in the eye. How she'd told herself she didn't care, that he was just some old genius who couldn't handle being human for more than 5 minutes at a time. But holding that letter, she realized something strange. She missed him. Not the chaos, not the adventures, but him. The way his presence made the air buzz, the way the world felt a little less ordinary when he was around. Her fingers trembled as she opened the letter. Inside there was a single sheet, folded neatly, surprisingly neat for Rick. The paper was yellowed, maybe old. The handwriting was uneven, like he'd written it late at night when his hands were too tired to obey his thoughts. Summer, Morty, Beth. Maybe Jerry too, depending on how this goes.
If you're reading this, it means I've stopped.
Don't panic. Don't go looking. Stopping isn't dying.
It's just
silence with meaning. I spent a long time trying to outrun quiet. Thought if I made enough noise, I'd never have to hear what it was saying. Turns out the quiet wasn't the enemy. It was the part of me that wanted to rest. If I stopped, it's because I finally listened. Summer paused, her throat tightening. The rest of the letter continued softly, as if Rick's voice had grown smaller, gentler.
I know I wasn't much of a grandfather, or a father,
or anything consistent. But you all gave me something the multiverse couldn't. Proof that chaos can still love. If Morty's there, tell him he was right. About everything that matters.
And if you ever find me again,
don't wake me too soon. Let me dream a little longer. At the bottom, instead of a signature, there was a tiny doodle of a bottle, a star, and a smiley face. Typical Rick. Summer stared at the page for a long time. The silence around her seemed to deepen, wrapping her like a blanket. Tears welled up, though she didn't quite understand why. She wasn't the crying type. But this wasn't about sadness. It was something softer, something like peace. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Her heart felt heavy, but not in a painful way. More like she was carrying something sacred. She stood, looked around the garage once more, and noticed something strange. For a brief second, the lights above her flickered. Not the harsh flicker of malfunction, but a gentle one, like a pulse.
Like a wink, Rick,
she whispered. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was warm, present. She smiled faintly. Figures.
Even gone, you're still showing off. She turned to leave, but paused at the door.
The envelope felt warm in her hand. She glanced back once more, and for a split moment, she could have sworn she saw movement, just a shimmer. The faint outline of a man sitting in a chair, smiling toward the ceiling. Then it was gone. Summer closed the door gently behind her. The latch clicked softly. Not final, not cold, just settled. As she walked upstairs, she thought of something Rick had once said. The universe doesn't care, Summer. You've got to find the parts that do. Maybe he was wrong, she thought. Maybe the universe cared in ways too quiet to notice. Maybe the stars blinked for him after all. When she reached her room, she placed the envelope on her desk. The moonlight from her window fell across it, turning the paper silver. She traced the words with her finger.
If I stop, don't wake me. Sleep well, Rick, she whispered.
Wherever you are. The clock downstairs kept ticking, but softer now, like it, too, was growing tired. And somewhere, far beyond her understanding, the stars blinked once, slow, steady.
Alive again. There's a moment between night and morning when the stars dim, but the sun hasn't yet risen.
Astronomers call it twilight, but Rick called it the blue hour. He said it was the only time the universe didn't want anything from him. Now he and Morty were floating through that endless blue. Not water, not sky, but a quiet, glowing in-between. The ship drifted with no clear direction, powered by something that wasn't fuel. It hummed softly, the hum of remembered laughter, of gentle apologies, of moments that had mattered once. Morty leaned against the window, watching the faint outlines of distant galaxies drift by like lanterns on a cosmic sea.
Are we anywhere?
He asked quietly. Rick didn't answer right away. He was at the controls, though they weren't really controls anymore. His hands just rested there, fingertips tracing circles on the worn metal. His expression was unreadable. Not the usual mask of cynicism or exhaustion, but something deeper. Something calm. Anywhere, everywhere, same thing, Rick finally murmured. The coordinates don't mean much when you're not trying to escape. Morty smiled faintly, though he didn't fully understand. You mean we're lost? Rick chuckled, a low, tired sound like thunder far away.
Nah, Morty, just
not looking. Outside the viewport, the stars flickered faintly. The same ones that had once gone dark. The same ones that had forgotten how to blink. But now, one by one, they were starting to shimmer again, weakly at first, then with a gentle rhythm. Morty pressed his forehead to the glass.
They're waking up. Rick looked up too. No, he said softly.
They're remembering. For a while, they didn't speak. The silence was comfortable, the kind that lives between people who've already said everything that mattered. Morty thought about summer, about home, about how much quieter things had become. He wondered if they missed them, or if, in some strange way, they were meant to drift like this. The ship moved slowly, gliding through a field of faintly glowing particles. Fragments of forgotten universes, drifting memories. Each spark pulsed softly like a heartbeat. When one brushed against the hull, a faint sound echoed through the cabin. Not mechanical, but emotional. A laugh, a sigh, a song half remembered. Morty turned toward Rick. "What are these?" Rick leaned back in his chair. "Leftovers," he said. "Bits of timelines that folded in on themselves. They hang around, waiting for someone to notice, like cosmic dust of memories." He reached out and touched a small sphere that floated through the cabin's open viewport. It shimmered gold under his fingers. Inside, Morty thought he saw a younger Rick, not the one who drank or built or cursed the universe, but one who was laughing, surrounded by people.
Maybe a family.
Maybe just friends. Rick didn't flinch. He didn't turn away this time. He just watched quietly. "It's weird," Morty whispered. "You can almost feel what they remember." "Yeah," Rick said, his voice soft. "The universe keeps everything, Morty, even the stuff we wish it wouldn't." The blue light deepened outside, that endless tender color between night and dawn. It seemed to wrap the ship in stillness, as though the whole cosmos had decided to rest. Rick closed his eyes. "You ever notice," he said, "that when things get quiet, people start thinking they're lost? Like the noise is what tells them they're alive." Morty nodded. "Yeah, I used to hate quiet. It made me feel small. And now?" Morty hesitated. "Now it just feels big, but in a good way." Rick smiled faintly, not his usual grin, but a small, almost invisible curve of peace. "Kid," he said, "you're starting to sound like you've been listening." They both laughed, not loudly, but enough to fill the cabin with warmth. The echoes of that laughter drifted out into the blue hour, rippling softly across the cosmic sea. After a while, Morty noticed something unusual. The ship's console lights had dimmed, all except one, a single glowing dot pulsing on the radar. It wasn't moving.
It just blinked slowly, rhythmically. "What's that?"
Rick leaned forward, squinting. "That looks like home. Earth?" He nodded. "Or a version of it. One where things might still make sense." Morty tilted his head.
"Are we going back?"
Rick didn't answer right away. His eyes lingered on the blinking light, then drifted to the stars outside. They were glowing brighter now, not in chaos but in harmony, a quiet rhythm of remembrance. Finally, he said, "Not yet." "Maybe we don't need to," Morty smiled, leaning back in his seat. "Okay." The hum of the ship softened further, as if it were responding to their calm. Rick adjusted a few levers, not out of necessity but out of habit. Then he opened a small compartment near the console and pulled out an old photo. Creased, faint, almost erased by time. It was of a young girl holding a small mechanical bird. She was smiling wide, eyes full of light. Rick ran his thumb over the edge of the picture. Morty noticed.
"Is that her?"
Rick didn't look up. "Yeah, just a version of someone I once promised I'd fix the stars for." Morty waited, then whispered, "Did you?" Rick smiled faintly.
"I thought I forgot how."
"But maybe I didn't." Outside, the stars continued blinking, each one soft and alive, reflecting in the glass like 1,000 quiet eyes. As they floated onward, Morty closed his eyes. The hum of the ship became a lullaby, a sound between dreams and memory. Rick leaned back, watching the universe pulse gently around them, the blue fading slowly toward dawn. "Morty," he said after a long while, his voice almost a whisper. "Maybe the stars never stopped blinking. Maybe it was just us," Morty murmured, half asleep. "Then I guess we're finally looking again." Rick looked out into the soft horizon, where light began to stretch faintly, the first suggestion of morning. Even in a place that had no sun, he exhaled, the stars blinked back. The ship drifted gently, guided less by engines and more by the rhythm of the universe itself. Outside, galaxies stretched like ribbons of silver, folding softly into each other, and a quiet stillness filled the cabin. Morty sat beside the window, legs pulled close, and watched as a faint, misty light began to outline a distant planet. Its surface shimmered like glass touched by the last traces of twilight, and there was a softness to its contours, as if the land itself were breathing. Rick didn't speak at first. He studied the planet, noting the subtle shifts in its light, the slow rotation that made it feel eternal, yet fleeting.
"This one's
different," he said finally. "Time here doesn't rush. It lingers, folds back on itself, and waits. Someone, or something, decided it needed to slow down." Morty frowned slightly.
Slow down for what?
Rick leaned back, his gaze still fixed on the glowing horizon. "To forgive, to let go. You can feel it, Morty. Places like this exist where the universe sighs." The ship descended, passing through clouds that seemed spun from twilight itself. They weren't grey or stormy, just tender shades of blue and lavender, wrapping the landscape below in a gentle embrace. Trees swayed in a breeze that barely existed, leaves whispering in tones too soft to hear fully. Rivers reflected not the sky, but memories, faint ripples of laughter, of conversations half remembered,
Of footsteps that had passed here long ago. Morty stepped onto the planet, his shoes making almost no sound.
He looked around, sensing the hush that settled over everything. "It feels
Empty," he whispered, "but not sad." "Empty, sure," Rick murmured.
but also full of endings that haven't happened yet." They walked together, side by side, across fields that seemed to hum beneath their feet. Flowers opened in slow, deliberate rhythms, petals catching faint glimmers of starlight from nowhere in particular. Each bloom seemed like a pause in time, a moment that existed not to impress, not to last, but simply to be. Morty reached out, brushing a petal with his fingertip. It quivered gently, then settled, as if acknowledging his presence. Rick stopped and knelt by a small pond that mirrored the sky above. His reflection appeared beside Morty's, but there was something in it older, wearier. A Rick who had carried countless mistakes, regrets, and memories too heavy to count. He didn't look away. Instead, he exhaled, and the pond seemed to ripple in response, soft waves echoing outward. "This is the part," Rick said quietly, "where you don't fix things, where you don't invent or explore or destroy.
You just let it be."
You let yourself forgive what you've done, Morty, and you let the universe forgive you back." Morty stayed silent. He wanted to say something, but words felt too sharp for the gentle air here.
Instead, he sat on the edge of the pond, watching the light move slowly across the water. Time itself seemed to stretch, unmeasured.
Minutes became hours, hours became a soft eternity. Birds, or shapes that resembled birds, drifted in the lavender sky, making no noise, carrying with them faint echoes of forgotten songs. Morty realized he could feel the memories of countless worlds brushing against him, not in a way that was overwhelming, but like a gentle reminder that everything that ever happened mattered, even the moments lost to forgetfulness. Rick's eyes lingered on the horizon. "Every place like this," he said, "is built on forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself."
You have to let go, Morty, otherwise time
Time keeps folding in on you and you never move, Morty nodded, sensing the weight in those words. He understood finally why Rick had brought him here. Not for adventure, not for science, but to feel what it meant to release the past. They walked further, to a ridge overlooking the planet's gentle valleys. Light pooled in soft patches, illuminating streams and trees in muted, comforting colors. Rick didn't say anything. He just let the wind brush his hair, let the quiet settle into his bones. Morty watched him, and for the first time, he saw Rick not as the genius, reckless inventor, or the man burdened by his mistakes, but as someone learning slowly to rest. In that silence, Morty felt the years they had spent running, creating chaos, chasing infinity, dissolve. Here, time didn't demand anything. The planet didn't ask questions, didn't judge. It simply held space for all that had been, and for all that would eventually fade. Rick reached into his coat and pulled out a small, crumpled note. He smoothed it gently with fingers that trembled slightly. "I wrote this years ago," he said, "in case I ever needed to stop and remember, to forgive myself before it was too late." He didn't show it to Morty, he didn't have to. Morty could feel the sentiment, a quiet promise, a soft acknowledgement that even someone like Rick needed a pause. The two of them stood there for hours, not talking, not moving much, just breathing with the slow pulse of the planet beneath their feet. The light shifted imperceptibly, as if the world itself were exhaling, folding in on itself and settling into a long, gentle sleep. As night began to fall, faint stars emerged, blinking in the softest, slowest rhythm. Morty noticed and whispered, "They remembered." Rick didn't answer right away. He simply rested a hand on Morty's shoulder, letting the gravity of the moment anchor them both.
"Yeah, Morty," he said finally.
They did, and so did we. They stayed there until the blue hour gave way to the deepest night. The planet waited for them to leave, patient, forgiving, eternal in its own quiet way. And when they finally climbed back into the ship, they didn't need to say goodbye. The memory of that place, the understanding they had found, would stay with them forever. The engines hummed softly as the ship lifted off. Rick glanced at Morty, and without speaking, the silence between them carried the full weight of what they had learned. That forgiveness, even for the universe's most restless minds, is the gateway to stillness. And as they drifted back into the soft expanse of infinite space, Morty thought he could feel the world itself sigh, a long, contented breath that carried everything away, leaving nothing but calm. The ship drifted quietly through the black velvet of space, the kind of stillness that wrapped itself around them like a soft blanket. Stars glittered faintly, twinkling not with urgency, but with the gentle rhythm of a slow heartbeat. Morty sat cross-legged on the floor, his back leaning against the ship's hull, eyes tracing constellations that felt older than time itself. He could feel the echo of the worlds they had visited lingering in the air. Places that had forgiven, places that had waited, and somewhere deep in the marrow of infinity, he sensed that Rick was feeling it too. Rick was leaning against the control panel, arms crossed, his usual smirk absent. There was a softness to him tonight, as if the chaos of 1,000 universes had been folded away, and he was left with only the quiet. The glow from the dashboard painted subtle lines across his face, revealing the faint traces of exhaustion, reflection, and perhaps, finally, peace. Morty shifted slightly, careful not to disturb the silence too abruptly. But the question had been weighing on him for hours, echoing softly through the corridors of his mind, and he finally let it escape in a whisper. "Rick,
Are you proud of me?"
The words hung in the air, fragile and small, yet carrying the weight of everything they had been through. Rick's eyes flicked to Morty, lingering on his grandson's face as if measuring the truth in those words. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let the silence stretch, giving the universe itself a chance to breathe around them. Morty watched him, heart thumping softly, unsure if he had asked too much or if the question was too large to be answered in mere words. He thought of all the times Rick had been distant, sarcastic, dismissive, or lost in thought. He remembered the adventures that had left him scared, exhausted, and yet somehow more alive. And still, he waited. Finally, Rick let out a slow breath, a soft exhale that seemed to carry years of regret, memories, and quiet triumph. "Morty," he began, his voice unusually tender, "I'm more proud of you than I ever was of myself." Morty's chest swelled with warmth. He didn't need more than that. The simple acknowledgement, spoken in a quiet, unhurried tone, carried everything that words could never fully capture. The trust, the love, the understanding that had been building between them for years. Rick continued, gazing at the soft glimmer of distant stars. "You know, kid, I've always tried to solve everything, fix everything, invent my way out of every problem in the multiverse.
And maybe I forgot.
Maybe I forgot that being proud isn't about what you do. It's about who you are, and you're
something I can finally rest knowing exists." Morty's eyes flicked toward the window, where galaxies stretched endlessly, shimmering with faint, lazy twinkles.
He imagined every world they had visited, every person they had touched, every small act of courage, kindness, and patience that had carried them here. And in that vast, gentle space, he felt the truth of Rick's words wrap around him like a protective shield.
I'm glad," Morty whispered. "That you feel that way," Rick nodded slowly. "Yeah."
"Me too, Morty, me too." The two of them sat together, letting the silence carry meaning beyond language. Outside, the stars blinked in slow, deliberate pulses, like a heartbeat reminding them that even in the vast expanse of everything ending, life, memory, and love persisted. Time here was different. It was stretched, folded, and patient. The pressure to act, to fix, to invent had dissolved. All that remained was presence, attention, and the quiet acknowledgement of each other's existence. Morty leaned against Rick, feeling the subtle rhythm of his grandfather's breathing, the faint warmth that radiated even through the fabric of his jacket.
"Do you think all those worlds we visited, all those moments, they'll remember us?"
Morty asked softly, almost as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile stillness. Rick's eyes softened. "They already do, Morty. Every laugh we shared, every sunset we watched, every time we stopped to just exist, it's all remembered. Not by machines, not by beings, but by the universe itself."
"And maybe that's enough." Morty smiled faintly, closing his eyes for a moment as the calm settled deeper into him. "I like that," he murmured. Rick didn't respond with words, but he didn't need to.
The silence between them was now full of understanding, full of pride, love, forgiveness, and quiet awe. They had wandered through fading worlds, witnessed memories that were slipping away, and yet here they were, two beings at the edge of infinity, feeling the weight of endings without fear, without urgency. The ship drifted on,
carried by currents of space that felt almost alive.
Light shimmered across the dashboard in soft, fleeting patterns, echoing the gentle flicker of stars outside. Morty's mind began to wander, tracing back through the events of their journey, the worlds that had slept, the Ricks who had painted stars, the Mortys who had stayed behind. Every memory felt alive, not trapped in time, but flowing like a quiet river, carrying them toward understanding. Rick's voice, when it came again, was softer still, almost a whisper to the universe itself.
"You know, Morty,
pride isn't loud.
It doesn't shout.
It doesn't need to. It's just here.
And it's enough. It's all anyone ever really needs." Morty let that sink in, letting the rhythm of Rick's words and the heartbeat of distant stars fill him.
He realized then that pride, love, and forgiveness were not things to chase. They were quiet spaces that could be inhabited if one simply paused long enough to breathe. The stars blinked once, twice like a heartbeat, like confirmation. Morty felt the warmth of Rick's presence beside him, the resonance of all the places they had touched, and he understood, without needing to speak, that some endings weren't sad at all. They were calm, peaceful, and infinitely expansive, and in that quiet, floating through a universe that had slowed its pulse to match their own, Morty knew that this moment, this gentle affirmation, this shared stillness, would linger. It would echo in every star, every memory, and every quiet reflection of the worlds they had seen. Rick glanced at him once more, a faint, tired smile curling beneath the shadows of his eyes.
You're doing just fine, Morty. More than fine. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Morty let his eyes drift closed, letting the vast calm of the cosmos cradle him.
And for the first time in a long while, he felt it. The steady, unshakable pulse of pride, love, and quiet acceptance. Rick had always been a man of clutter, chaos, and invention. His garage had once been a cacophony of whirring machines, glowing gadgets, and half-finished experiments. But now, perched above a quiet, distant planet, the garage had changed. It was no longer a place of frenetic energy or restless discovery. It had become a quiet sanctuary, a space where time seemed to breathe alongside him. Morty stepped through the doorway, careful to pause and take in the simplicity of it all. There were no gadgets humming, no test tubes clinking, no portal guns sparking with restless curiosity. Only the bare essentials: a sturdy chair, a simple workbench, a single window that framed the endless expanse of stars, and a soft rug where a few notebooks lay stacked, their pages untouched for months. Rick was already sitting looking out at the galaxy with an expression of calm that Morty had never seen before. "Wow," Morty whispered, almost to himself. The word felt too small for what he was seeing. The chaos that had once defined Rick's life had been replaced by something far more enduring: stillness. Rick didn't respond immediately. He just let the silence linger, like the pause between heartbeats, letting Morty adjust to the enormity of it. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and even. "It's nice up here, quiet, no interruptions, no obligations. Just space to exist," Morty nodded slowly. He had watched Rick chase worlds, chase inventions, chase every flicker of knowledge and chaos in the multiverse. And now to see him here, calm, patient, almost contemplative, felt like witnessing a soft miracle. "Why here?" Morty asked, gesturing toward the stars beyond the window. "Why build a garage above a planet instead of, another experiment?" Rick turned slightly, letting the faint glow of starlight touch his face.
"I realized something, Morty. All those years, all that running.
I thought I needed to fix everything, to see everything, to understand everything. And maybe that's true for some things, but not all. Some of it just needs to be seen, not changed. This garage, it's a place to see, to watch, to exist. And maybe, if I'm lucky, to remember why it was worth it all." Morty stepped closer and sat on the rug, pulling his knees to his chest. He could feel the calm radiating from Rick, like a gentle warmth that settled in the spaces between thoughts.
"I like it," he said quietly. "I like this place. It feels
safe, peaceful, like it's exactly where it's supposed to be." Rick smiled faintly, the corners of his eyes softening.
"That's the idea, kid.
We don't always get to choose our paths, but we can choose the spaces we inhabit along the way. We can choose to notice the quiet, to rest in it, to finally be okay with not running." Morty thought about everything they had seen. Worlds that had slept, memories that had faded, versions of themselves that had existed and vanished. And yet, here, in this quiet garage floating above a small, indifferent planet, he felt the weight of all that collapse lift from his shoulders. He felt the soft hum of presence, of being enough. They didn't speak for a long while. The ship outside cast gentle shadows across the floor, painting slow, lazy patterns that shifted like drifting clouds. Morty watched Rick's hand resting on the arm of the chair, the faint tremor of age and fatigue softened by time spent in reflection. It was strange, almost sacred, to see the man who had once outrun galaxies now simply sitting, listening to the universe breathe. "Do you think
It matters?
Morty asked after a while, his voice almost a whisper.
All the things we did? All the universes we visited?
Does it matter? Rick looked out the window, eyes tracing distant constellations. It matters because we noticed it, Morty. Because we cared, because we loved, because we were awake to it. That's all any of it ever really needs to be. The worlds, the adventures,
They'll fade.
but the attention we gave, the memories we held,
That lingers.
that's the part that counts. Morty nodded, feeling the truth in those words settle deep inside him. He imagined all the places they had been, all the hearts they had touched, all the laughter and quiet moments that had carried them here. And in that imagining, he felt a soft surge of pride. Not just in himself, but in Rick, in the world, in the universe itself. They stayed like that for hours, though time here had little meaning. The stars moved slowly, casting silver light across the floorboards and walls. Morty leaned against Rick, feeling the rhythm of his breathing and the silent, steady pulse of existence around them. He thought of the adventures that had broken them, the moments that had tested them, and the quiet truths that had healed them. And in this gentle pause, he understood the value of everything, even the failures, even the ending. Rick spoke again, his voice soft and deliberate. "One day, kid, maybe you'll have a place like this too. Somewhere quiet, somewhere you can just exist and remember why it was worth it all. Somewhere to be proud of yourself, even when no one else is watching." Morty smiled faintly, closing his eyes as he imagined that future. The hum of the ship, the soft light of the stars, the faint scent of cosmic dust drifting in through the open window. It all felt like a lullaby, a gentle meditation, a promise that even in the vast, unending multiverse, moments of peace could be found, and in that moment, Rick and Morty simply existed together.
Unhurried, untroubled, resting in the quiet.
There were no portals to chase, no experiments to complete, no universes to save. Only the soft comfort of presence, the warmth of connection, and the simple, enduring knowledge that some things, love, memory, stillness, were enough. They stayed there until the stars themselves seemed to blink slower, reflecting the steady calm that had finally settled over them. Morty felt his eyelids grow heavy, the soft pulse of the universe cradling him. Rick's hand rested lightly on the armrest, and for the first time in a long while, Morty realized that endings could be gentle, that quiet could be powerful. That peace was not just a possibility, but a choice, and with that understanding, they sat together in silence. The garage in the sky becoming more than a place. It became a memory, a sanctuary, a final lesson in the art of being still. The universe had grown quieter, not empty, not dead, but soft, like a lullaby played at the edge of hearing. Rick and Morty drifted in the small ship above the still glowing expanse of distant galaxies. Stars, once bright and restless, now shimmered faintly, almost shyly, as if the cosmos itself had leaned back to watch them move. Morty leaned on the console, his eyes half closed, tracing constellations that felt strangely familiar, though he had never seen some of them before. Rick didn't speak, he simply listened. That was unusual for him, but the quiet hum of the universe had a weight, a presence that demanded attention. It was not chaos, not the usual cacophony of the multiverse. This was gentle, deliberate, almost tender. Every flicker of light, every faint vibration through the hull seemed to echo memories Rick had long buried. Morty broke the silence first, his voice soft, careful.
It's like the universe is talking to us. Rick's eyes crinkled in a faint smile. It's not talking, Morty. Not in the way you think.
It's remembering. Remembering? Morty's brow furrowed. Every laugh we've heard, every tear we've ignored, every goodbye we've lived through. It's all stored in the quiet spaces.
And now it's letting us hear it.
Letting us feel it. Not in words, not in images, but as presence, as attention. As memory made gentle, Morty leaned back, exhaling slowly, feeling the hum of the ship align with his heartbeat. He had always thought of Rick as someone who could never stop running, never pause long enough to notice anything but the next problem, the next adventure. And yet here he was, a man who had touched infinity, letting himself exist in stillness, learning something profound from the simple act of listening. They drifted past a nebula that glimmered like liquid, violet light, so vast and slow that it felt almost like a breathing thing. Morty imagined he could see echoes of every version of himself he had ever been, all of them watching the stars blink in tandem. And somewhere in the soft folds of light, he thought he saw a smile, his own child's, an older version of Rick's perhaps too, a collective acknowledgement of endurance, of love preserved across uncountable realities. Rick tapped a button on the console, more out of habit than need. A gentle holographic projection emerged, filling the cabin with faint colors and drifting particles, memories of laughter, moments of joy, fleeting connections, all rendered not as images, but as sensation. Morty reached out, letting the light wash over him. He felt every memory like a soft touch, a hand on his shoulder, the warmth of someone's eyes meeting his, the quiet exhale of contentment shared in a fleeting second.
They're happy, Morty whispered.
All of them. Every world.
Every version of us. They're okay. Rick's voice was quieter than usual, almost reverent. That's the thing, Morty. We think we have to fix everything, make everything right.
But the universe, it doesn't need fixing.
It needs noticing.
It needs someone to pay attention long enough to let it breathe. And that's what we're doing. Morty leaned closer, resting his head against the cool metal of the console.
I think I understand. Even if the worlds are ending, even if everything is fading,
it's not sad.
It's just letting go. Rick let out a faint, soft chuckle. Not the manic, chaotic laugh of old, but something warmer, more human.
Exactly, kid. It's letting go. And sometimes letting go is the most important thing we ever do. They drifted for hours, though time had little meaning here. The galaxies shimmered like distant lanterns in a vast hall, their glow steady, unwavering. The ship's hum blended with the rhythm of the universe itself, a lullaby composed over eons. Morty thought about the places they had been, the people they had touched, the moments they had left behind. And yet here, in this suspended quiet, he realized it all mattered. Every step, every mistake, every whispered word and shared glance. Rick stood, finally, stretching, his silhouette framed against the window of soft cosmic light. He looked at Morty, and for a fleeting moment, he seemed almost fragile, as though the weight of 1,000 universes rested gently on his shoulders, and he had decided
at last that it was okay to set it down. Do you hear it, Morty?
He asked. All the laughter, all the love, all the memories we didn't even know we saved?
That's the universe whispering back.
We did this, all of us.
And it's forgiving, it's grateful.
It's at peace. Morty closed his eyes, letting the sensation wash over him. He felt every heartbeat, every whisper of light, every echo of a life lived. He felt the weight of existence dissolve, leaving only the gentle pulse of connection, the quiet assurance that nothing is truly lost. Rick moved to stand beside him, leaning on the edge of the console. Sometimes, Morty, he said softly, this is all we get. A day where the universe whispers back, where we stop running, and for just a moment,
Everything is okay.
just like it should be. And in that moment, Morty understood. It wasn't the adventures, the portals, the chaos that mattered. It was the attention they had given, the memories they had cherished, the quiet love that had threaded through the infinite. It was the pause, the breath, the stillness. That was the legacy they had created, and it was enough. The stars twinkled, faint but steady. The galaxies hummed softly. And Rick and Morty, together in the quiet of the ship, finally let the universe speak, letting its gentle echo fill them completely. For the first time in a long, long time, they didn't have to do anything. They just existed, and it was enough. The night began as it always did, quiet, almost imperceptible, yet Rick felt it differently this time. Not with panic, not with the usual edge of curiosity or invention, but with a kind of knowing calm. The stars above the garage flickered faintly, like they were blinking just for him, just this once. Morty sat beside him, knees drawn up, gazing at the sky as if it held every answer he had ever sought. In this moment, Rick said softly, everything finally makes sense.
Or maybe nothing does.
But that doesn't matter anymore. Morty looked at him, eyes wide, despite the stillness.
Rick, what is it? What's making you quiet like this?
Rick chuckled, low, human, almost gentle.
Kid, it's the night the lights forgot to blink.
You remember that night? Morty nodded. The night you stopped talking for a while and I didn't know what to say.
I thought something was wrong. Rick shook his head. Nothing was wrong. I just wasn't listening.
Not really. And tonight, I am. They sat together in the garage, the hum of distant galaxies faintly audible through the walls, blending with the soft whir of the few machines still awake. The rest of the universe had slowed, faded, drawn into the gentle fold of quiet reflection. Rick leaned back, letting the weight of years, of infinite adventures, of infinite regrets, settle over him like a familiar blanket. Morty watched, sensing that this was different from anything he had ever seen in his grandfather. You know, Rick said after a long pause,
I've spent so much of my life chasing something. Glory, invention, understanding, escape, maybe all of it.
But none of it. None of it mattered the way I thought it did. Morty tilted his head, listening. He had always learned from Rick, had always seen the genius, the chaotic brilliance, the reckless energy. But now he was seeing the man beneath all of that.
And the man was tired?
Not exhausted in a weak way, but fulfilled in a way that only comes from letting go, from finally seeing the truth without needing to fix it. Rick's eyes wandered over the scattered tools, the glowing bottles, the portal remnants.
Every time I thought I was breaking the universe, Morty, maybe it was the universe breaking me, or maybe it was just teaching me to stop. Morty didn't respond.
Words seemed inadequate. Instead, he reached over and placed a hand on Rick's arm. A small, simple gesture, but heavy with understanding, with love. Rick felt it. He turned slightly, letting Morty's warmth meet him fully, without deflection, without joke or deflection or sarcasm. For the first time in decades, Rick didn't feel the urge to outrun everything. He didn't feel the need to invent, to escape, to alter.
He just existed. Do you
forgive me? Rick asked, almost whispering. Morty smiled faintly.
Rick, you've always been trying, and that's enough. Rick let out a breath he didn't know he was holding.
He leaned back, eyes tracing the soft glow of the faintly blinking stars above.
I guess everything's gonna be okay, man. He said it as though testing the phrase, tasting the words.
They were strange, unfamiliar, yet entirely true. The garage felt alive in a different way. Not with experiments, not with inventions, not with frantic activity. It breathed.
It listened.
It held every memory, every laugh, every tear, every quiet moment of peace that Rick had long ignored. Even the smallest details, a tiny wrench left on the counter, a half-finished drawing, a A bottle of glowing liquid that hadn't moved in years seemed significant, like part of a greater pattern he could finally see. Morty glanced at him, noticing the faintest curve of a smile, the slackened tension in shoulders that had carried infinite burdens. "You're happy?" he asked softly. Rick considered it. "Not happy," he said after a moment. "At least not in the way we think about happiness. It's
lighter, calmer, like I finally stopped running from the quiet.
like the quiet finally caught me. The ship, the garage, the universe outside all seemed to lean in, folding gently around them, acknowledging their presence. It was the kind of quiet that carried warmth, not emptiness. The kind of peace that comes not from absence but from presence. Rick felt it seep into him, into every corner of his mind that had long been dark with noise and chaos. Morty shifted closer, resting his head on the edge of the console.
"So, the universe, it didn't break you?"
Rick shook his head, looking at the soft lights above. "No, kid."
"I broke myself, and then..."
the universe whispered back.
"And now for the first time I'm listening."
Time as it existed in their little corner of space slowed. Each heartbeat stretched gently into the next. The stars blinked twice, faintly, like a slow cosmic pulse. The hum of distant galaxies, the soft exhale of infinite worlds, all became a lullaby. It wasn't chaotic, it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was steady. It was home. Rick and Morty sat together, no words left unspoken, no gestures unshared, no silence unfilled. The episode that had broken Rick, the quiet night, the slow fading of lights, the forgotten laughter and memories, had transformed him. It had shown him that everything he had feared losing had already been kept safe, gently, within the folds of time and care. And in that silence, in that stillness, in that gentle hum of existence, Rick smiled fully. Not the half grimace of a man who had endured too much, but the small, simple, honest curve of someone who finally understood everything was going to be okay. And for the first time in all of infinity, Rick believed it. The stars blinked once, twice, then faded into the warm, infinite dark of everything. And in that darkness, Rick exhaled. Thanks for spending this time with us. Sleep well.
Everything's gonna be okay, man.